Hello guys, I'm out here at a railroad crossing. It's close to a little place that was called Harney, Nevada, which isn't really here anymore. There's not even a ghost town. It used to be a town, but it's just not here anymore. But I wanted to give you a story about a train wreck that happened here close to Harney. So we're going to walk up here by the tracks, and got to be careful because this is an active train track, and they do have a lot of trains coming through here. We just saw one that went by. I tried to catch it real quick, but it's too slow. So we're going to cross this train track over here, and there is an old building over here that I'm going to try to get a look at. So let me turn you around. Okay, I hope the wind isn't too bad, you guys. But found this old house here. Walk up here through the brush. Pretty cool. Gonna come up here and take a look. This is obviously an old homestead. And the way it's fenced off, it looks like a old farming homestead. Maybe a cattle ranch, most likely. So let's go on over here and take a look. Have to be careful where I'm walking. I just gotta be careful, guys. Don't want to run into any rattlesnakes. Oh, this is interesting. Hope the wind isn't too bad for you. It's a little windy out here. Something's sticking my foot. Hope I didn't pick up a nail. I have to check my shoe. Oh, look at this. This place has pretty much had it. See if I can get up in here without falling. Oh, I made it. Now look at this floor. Lots of holes. Wow. I want to get over there and look at that, see what that is. But I'm afraid if I walk on this floor, it's going to fall right through. Looks like that might have been the old kitchen area back there. That's what it looks like. Yeah, it's pretty much falling apart. This is probably one of the old ranches that was near the little town of Harney, which no longer exists. See if I can get back out of here without falling. Hold on a second, guys. I'm going to have to jump. Okay. Had to jump down out of that house. And there's the Humboldt River's right over there. Hope you can see that old train trestle. Anyways, pretty country out here. Really nice and quiet. It's pretty windy. Oh, I got stickers. Okay, I'm going to come back over here. I love this country out here because it's so quiet and so peaceful. You hear those trees, that is so cool. And there's the last picture of the old house. So let's go on back out here, guys. That sounds like water in the background, but that's actually trees. Oh, my camera's not too rough, but this is kind of rough walking. Oh, and there's a whole bunch of bees. Yikes. Oh, it's kind of cold out today, too. There's my truck over there across the tracks. Isn't this beautiful country, though? Just love it out here. So peaceful. It's like a little shed building back there behind. Here's the old homestead. Let's walk back up here. I think that's about all we're going to see as far as I've been driving out through the desert trying to find this place. Harney at one time was a little city that I guess it had several occupants. I couldn't find any information on it. But according to the story I'm going to tell you about the railroad accident that was here, there was several people that lived here. Of course, the town's gone now, but I suspect it was probably because of the mining. And of course, like a lot of towns in Nevada, when the mines play out, the people leave, move on to better, bigger, greener pastures. Yeah, I think the way this is set out with the fencing and stuff, this definitely was a ranch. We'll go on up here. And I'll tell you the story about the train. There's the train tracks. That's so pretty. Okay guys, I'm going to tell you a story about the city of San Francisco, and it actually was a train that was a through passenger train that came from Chicago to San Francisco, and it ran from 1936 to 1971 on the Overland route from Chicago, Illinois to Oakland, California, with the ferry connection onto San Francisco. It was owned and operated jointly by the Chicago and Northwestern Railway from 1936 to 1955, and then the Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Paul, and Pacific Railroad from 1955 to 1971. It was introduced in 1936, and it took from Chicago to San Francisco was 39 hours and 45 minutes for each way. The train derailed in 1939, and it was along this stretch of the tracks. I don't know exactly where. It was at bridge number 4 that crosses the Humboldt River, and I could not find the exact location, but it was by the city of Harney, Nevada, which no longer exists. So I think we're about as close to Harney as we can get right here. This isn't the exact spot, but it was just the roads are gone, and I don't believe there's any buildings left to even look at. It derailed in 1939, and it was ruled an act of sabotage. But despite years of investigation, remains unsolved. The engineer was Ed Hecox, who had also been a stagecoach driver in the 1880s. So can you imagine being a stagecoach driver, you know, with a team of horses and pulling a coach, and then ending up in 1939 being an engineer on a railroad? That's pretty awesome. The train was running at 90 miles per hour that day. Dinner had just wrapped up in the restaurant car, and many of the passengers were enjoying post-meal drinks. The engineer noticed a tumbleweed on the track at 9:33 p.m., speeding toward bridge number 4 over the Humboldt River Gorge, which is right around here. I wish I knew the exact spot, but with the terrain the way it is and everything, I can't get to it. The engineer said that when the train hit the tumbleweed, he felt a jar in the engine. He braked, but it was too late, and the train going 90 miles an hour is not going to stop suddenly anyway. So the forward engine slid off the rails, but kept right on going across the bridge. Behind it, 5 cars decoupled, the 32-seat coffee shop kitchen, a 72-seat dining car, a lounge car, and 2 sleeper cars plunged through the wooden track ties into the riverbed below. In the twisted wreckage were 24 dead and dying passengers and crew. Survivors crawled through the carnage, passing body parts torn apart by the impact. In the darkness, stewardess Thelma Risvet, I hope I pronounced her name right, suffering from a head wound, helped passengers until she herself passed out. It was too dark to see, so they began to set parts of the train on fire for light. Help was miles away. As soon as the train ground to a halt, the engineer started running for the closest town, and that would be Harney, Nevada. Between his train and that town, between the train and Harney where it wrecked, there was nothing. There was no telephones. There were no people. It was just desert. There was nothing. And he actually ran for miles to get to Harney to get some help. When he got to Harney, the alarm was finally raised. Volunteers from town followed the engineer back to the crash site. Nearly all of the 170 plus people aboard were injured. One passenger, a doctor, triaged the wounded. It was a long night for them. Can you imagine being out in the middle of the desert in the middle of the night and no help, people screaming and crying everywhere? It must have been something. When the rescue train came, investigators from the Southern Pacific Railroad, local enforcement, and the FBI, and they poured over the site, which unfortunately for the agents was unbelievably contaminated. Locals of the helpful and looky-loo varieties had walked over every inch of the dirt. Some had taken away pieces of train track as souvenirs. It was all just hopelessly muddled. Sabotage was quickly discovered. In the stretch leading up to the bridge, A 30-foot section of rail had been tampered with. Its spikes were forced inward. The tumbleweed that the engineer saw had been tied to the rail to hide the gap. Brown paint coated the area, another attempt to disguise the vandalism. The Southern Pacific's chief special agent out of San Francisco said the job would have taken 90 pounds of tools carried from the highway over a mile away and several hours. There was a 4-hour window between no trains passed through during which to accomplish the sabotage. And whoever did it had to pull a 1,500-pound rail 5 inches from its position and spike it back down. So these were people that knew what they were doing, and there had to be at least a team of people, at least 2 or 3, to even be able to handle this. I mean, to haul that many tools to the track and disassemble everything and spike it down and tie the tumbleweed and paint. I mean, and to do it in 4 hours, they must have really had to hustle. If one man did it, he had to have a giant strength. This had to be the work of at least 2 determined, able-bodied men with some knowledge of railroad operations. Instead of focusing on subjects with ties to the railroad, which I would think they would do immediately, but they didn't, detectives went about rounding up men made homeless by the Great Depression. Now, does it make sense to you that a homeless man who does not have regular meals, he's probably weak, probably not in the best health, definitely not in the best strength, doing that, hauling and where would he get the tools? It had to be railroad people. They first sought a suspicious figure reportedly seen near the crash site in the hours before. Witnesses swore that he had no ears. So the next day, a 35-year-old man was arrested who had only one ear. He also had half a foot, which would have made the physical task of derailing a train virtually impossible. And he proved he was 300 miles away. So the police released him. I mean, really. Next, investigators were sent to every hobo jungle in California, Utah, and Nevada. They also rounded up any transients in the Harney area. The president of the railroad maintained that only a person of diseased brain wrecks his train. However, the media argued that lunatics do not have the capacity for sustained cooperation such as this labor would have required. The key to the whole thing, a motive, is an enigma to this day. More likely it was the work of several men with a grudge against the railroad or an individual on the train. In the end, over 93,000 people were interviewed by the detectives, and after the outbreak of World War II, the case was taken off active status. Other than a civil suit in the 1940s, which yielded payouts for some injured passengers, the survivors of the city of San Francisco got no other justice for the crime. And their payout was a refund on the price of their ticket. So, because the railroad was deemed not at fault because it was sabotaged and caused to derail by no fault of the railroad, they didn't have to settle out big sums. But they did refund the ticket price to everyone on the train. That's little consolation for what they went through. And the city of San Francisco made one more strange appearance in American history. Amtrak's Sunset Limited passenger train, traveling from Miami to LA, derailed in the Arizona desert. One crew member was killed. The scene looked eerily familiar. A westbound train traveling through the desert at night, deliberately sabotaged at the approach to a bridge, sending the train to the left into a riverbed. Identical circumstances to the City of San Francisco train. Whether or not someone was inspired by the story of the City of San Francisco remains a mystery. They never solved that one either. So that's my train story. Thought we'd stop here. Tried to find the City of Harney, but like I said, it's just not here anymore. But we did get look at a little homestead, and I got to tell you my story, and I was hoping that a train would come by. Well, it was sitting here talking to you. We did see one in the beginning, but evidently we're not going to see a train. So this is my story for this one. I hope you enjoyed, and on to the next. Hope you have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.